Hello, everyone. In this video, I plan to describe how to transfer your numbers from your quantity takeoff to this table of quantities. And so we have several options to do that. One option is to just look at your markup summary and let's say your legend and just enter the numbers manually into the table. So that's one option, and that's probably easy. So that's one option. The second option is to use the quantity link option so that you can transfer the numbers automatically. And so that's while that is a very straightforward and accurate way, um, it has its own challenges. So, for instance, your markup may not already be set up in a way that you can directly transfer the numbers. So, like a bit of reworking might be needed before you can transfer the numbers automatically. So that's really up to you how you want to do that. And the other point I want to make here is that this table is more of a guideline rather than like an accurate or standard way of um, inputting numbers. So each estimator has their own way of creating these tables, and standards can differ from firm to firm or person to person. And so this is more of a guideline. So you feel free to adjust it. And if you don't like some of the ways that it's working, you can change it in a way that you think is appropriate for your method of thinking and working. So this is a template I have for the framing division and divides the framework into um, different floor levels. So let's say we have main level, upper level. So that's one way we divide this work. And then the other way is based on the building system, so or subsystem. So let's say we have floor framing, and then we have wall framing, and then we have um, roof framing. And we have subcategories for openings. And also the walls are divided, between interior versus exterior. So the reason we are doing this is that we want to make sure that um, when there are differences in costs, those differences are accounted for. So, for instance, interior walls have a different construction type than exterior walls, which means they also have different prices. So that's why we categorize them. And these columns that we have here, you don't need to fill out all of them. So only you fill out the columns that make sense to you, or you really want to have them. So a lot of them you just leave it blank as they are not appropriate for the quantity that you are trying to measure. And so the first line is the number of joists. So what I do here is I show you my markups. I have spent some time to improve them a little bit compared to the original video on floor joists. Okay, here's how my revised floor joists look like. So I've preserved the original joist, but then I have added two layers, one for the sheathing of the subfloor system. So let's say this grayish um, markup that is like an area measurement tool that represents the subfloor sheathing that I have on this floor. And other than that, I have created this beam because this project is designed to have at least one beam in the middle so that these joists can rest on. And if you go back to the foundation plan, you will see these columns and the beam indicator here. So that tells you that you have beams in the middle to reduce the total span. And so that said, here is the total length for that. Um, so I have this. legend here where it tells me, okay, what is the total length for this beam, and then what is the total length for all these joists, that is joist main level, and then I have a subfloor sheathing main level, which is the screen area measurement tool. Okay, so this thing that you see here, the length measurement, is simply just these small measurements that I placed, before. So we don't need that part, but the other numbers are useful. Um, and so the other point I want to mention is that main plans, joists, and subfloor sheathing and this beam is just identical to those of the upper floor. So you don't need to really um, do another round of markups for the upper floor because they are identical. So what I do here is to switch back to my table of quantities. And so let's see what's going on over there. On my table of quantities, the first thing I need is the floor joists. And what I have done is I use the quantity link option so I can, the first step to take the measurements is to first define your source file. So once you right click here, go to source file. And if your file is not listed here, you can add it. Okay. So the right file for the joist is this one for me. Like in my case, I have three different files for joist walls and extra studs, and I have other files for other components if needed. But my joist file is here. So you click on OK, and that way it identifies your file. Like you add it and click OK. And then if you want to edit the number, or you want to get a new number for a blank cell, write that like that. So in this case, it is length of the floor joist. So you go to this menu, you go to the length option, you select that, and then the subject is framing based on my Bluebeam markups, and then I can select joist main level. And once I click on OK, it draws the total quantity of the joist, which is like 1,668 feet. And this corresponds to the legend that I have. So if you go back and see the legend on the markup sheet, you will see that the numbers are the same. Okay, now what I'm doing here is that I'm reporting like all the measurements and the counts of lumber, okay, or the count of panel, or the count of screws or joist hangers. So, some people might prefer to report the final numbers and linear foot or whatever, like a square footage. But this is intended to help you order your material. So when I have this count listed here, it means that I can directly order them. So there is no additional step to convert linear foot to the count, because count is the way we order lumber, right? For example, you can say like how many 12 feet lumber you need, 12 feet 2x4, or 16 feet joist or whatever. You can order by count, and that's the most straightforward if the lengths are standard. Starting from here, I have the total length, and then and then before I can, find a quantity, I have to use a factor to convert that total length in, the unit that I want to order. So in this case, I want to convert the linear foot of joist to count of 16 feet I joists. So these engineered joists that are I-shaped in the profile, they come at 16 feet, standard sizes. So what I need to do here is that I need to take that total length and divide it, by the proper um, length of each individual piece so that I can get the count of the pieces. So instead of saying take that number and divide it by 16, that is the 16 feet per um, count of I joist. So what I do here is that I say, okay, this factor is 1 divided by 16, okay, which is 0.063. And now I have also a waste factor, which is like about 10%. And so to simplify calculations, towards the end, I just want to multiply the length by this factor by this waste. Um, okay, so this makes it easier. So I don't want to deal with a lot of um, calculations here. So if I can find the right factor, just like I do it for waste, that's the 10% factor. It makes it easier for me to get that total number. So I first get the length from my markups, and then this factor, it is 1 divided by 16. So when you multiply this length by this factor, it is like you are dividing this length by 16 to get a total count of 16 feet I joists. And because this is reported in feet, we can directly divide it by 16 or multiply it by this factor. So this number, the total length multiplied by this factor, will convert the length to count of 16 feet I joists. And then I want to add 10% factor for waste or whatever that might happen, just to be safe. And that gives me 115. And if the numbers are decimals here, you want to make sure that you are rounding them, preferably upward. Um, so get rid of the decimal places here. Can just go to right click, go to format cells. And like if you're using the numbers category, you can put the decimal places at 0. Okay, so that's for the floor joist. And then I also have a floor beam, as I showed you on my markup, right? So the length for that, again, I go to quantity link. I can find the subject framing, and then the label should be beam main level. So I have added that to my markup, and I can get that number from there. Now I have another factor here. So what I want to do here, now I want to convert the linear foot of beams to count of 12 feet lumber. And what this number is, this is really 1 divided by 12. Okay, so that way I can multiply that by whatever length I have to get the total number of 12 feet lumbers. Okay, so depending on the specifications of your structural drawings, I know this hasn't been shown on this drawing set because we don't have the structural details, but typically to construct a beam, you want to have a pair of um, these lumbers next to each other. And because we have a pair as opposed to just one, I have added the number 2 to this count column. Okay. So when I come here for this equation, the total quantity, so what I have here is that this number count multiplied by length, multiply by this factor to get the total count, and then multiply by 1.5, 1.1 waste factor. And that gives me like 11 count of 12 feet lumber to build the beams that I want. Okay. So next is the subfloor sheathing. And as I just showed on my um, markups, it is like this area, the green area that I've created. So for that, you need to select the area measurement. And the subject is framing. And in this case, I have created a subfloor sheathing main level markup. And I import it that way. So now I have to create a factor. And what I want to do here is to convert the total square footage of this floor area into 4 by 8 panel. So the total square foot is the total area is reported in a square foot. And when I'm trying to find a count of 4 by 8 panels, because 4 by 8 panels are 32 square feet, what I need as a factor here is 1 divided by 32. Okay. So that way, I just multiply this number by the waste factor, and that gives me the total count of 4 by 8 panels. Okay, now the next line is joist hangers. So to get that number, you have two options. So one option, okay, so first of all, the joist hangers is 8 hangers per joist. So that's more of a like in a standard of practice. And so because it is 8 hangers per joist, it means that you need to count the number of joists. Okay, you need to know how many joists you have so that after you multiply by 8, you have the total number of hangers. Okay, so here, if you want to do it like if you want to spend some time on it, what you can do, and I can show you on the markups sheet I have. So here, to get the number of joists, what we have really here is we have one joist, one set of joists on the left side of this beam, and one set of joists on the right side. And this the total like building width here, that's the 32 feet. We can cover that by two joists, one joist from here to here to the beam, and then one joist from beam to the other side of the building. And like each of those are approximately 16 feet. And together they are like 32 feet. So that covers the entire building. And if you want to really be consistent in terms of like how you're transferring the numbers from Bluebeam, the best way would be to add a count measurement tool. So let's say go to tools and go to measure, go to count, and then now let's say you want to, I need to first define this count measurement tool. Okay. So I have to identify what exactly I want here. So I label it as joists, something like that. Okay. And so the next step is to go and add it to your tool chest, say my tools. Okay. So now we have that here. Go to this tool chest menu, and you see that here. Okay. So to be consistent, what you should do here is to first delete this, and then go back and start from scratch, and add these. Okay. So let's say that's my total count of joists that I need. Okay, if I click on one of these, I can see its position in the markups list table. So the count measurement tells me that we have 84 joists on the main level, and it is the same on the outer level. So you can save this file. You can redo the legend to show it if you want. So right click and create a new legend. So if you do that, you will see this count measurement here, 84. And that tells you like how many joists you have. And that tells you how many joist hangers you need if you multiply that by 4. Okay. So that said, if you add okay, so that said, I go back to my table of quantities. So to get that, the number of joist hangers, what I can do is I can delete my previous numbers from here. And I just highlight this to show that here is linked to the quantity link. Um, so I save that file, go to quantity link, um, and I create a new one. Okay, the proper number is the proper label is joist count main level. So I go to joist count main level. Okay, now I have the right count for it. And so because it is 8 hangers per joist, what I have to do is I have to multiply that by 8. Okay. So what happens here is I simply multiply the count of my joists by 8 because we have 8 per count, and then multiply that by 1.1 waist factor. And that gives me the total number of joist hangers. Okay. So that's how I get that. And then I can use the same method to get the number of screws. So just like that, I go to um, create count, that's count measurement, and it is located in joist count main level. So the same number, these are redundant, so I just get rid of them. And because now I have, okay, let's see. We have 16 screws or nails per joist. So this number should be 16. And so what I need to do here is to just simply multiply that 84 by 16 to get the count of screws or nails, depending on which one you want to use. Okay, so it takes some time, but you can find ways to do it accurately. And so the good thing is now the upper level is exactly the same as the main level. So I need to just make sure that I'm following the same procedure. So I just copy the factors from above. I also copy the equations from above, and the numbers should be identical. So I have these and make some small changes here. So this one should be equal to one above. And okay, now I have got the numbers that I need. So that takes care of our floor framing. So now the next step is the wall framing. So here in this table, I have combined rated and non-rated for interior walls. Okay, now we have the joist set up, and so the next step is the wall framing. For wall framing, I have rated and non-rated walls combined because that doesn't affect the framing division. Although we need to make a distinction between the two, for other reasons like insulation or the subcontractors work, things like that. But for the purpose of the wood part, the wall studs and um, the plates that go into those could be combined. So if you're still using the markups in which you have separated lines and colors for rated versus non-rated, you might decide to just simply look at the numbers and then put them here after you combine them. So add the total quantity for rated to the non-rated, and so the combination should come at 324. But what I have done here is I can show you on my um, Bluebeam markup sheet. So for my walls, what I did was to, select the rated walls and, edit them so that they become identical to the non-rated walls. And the way you do that is that you can just, you know, change the labels and the colors. So you have to take a look at like what are the properties of your um, non-rated walls in terms of color and naming, whatever thing that you changed. Um, Take a look at that and then select your rated walls and then make sure the specifications are identical. So this has to be done simultaneously. So let's say you take all your rated walls you have, and so go here and change the colors together, and then the fill colors together. And then the label should change so that, all the walls are the same label. So if you do that, and then you'll see you have two lines here, one for exterior and one for interior. And in this case, I have changed the entire labels by selecting all the walls, and I've changed them to interior wall upper level. Okay. Um, so after you're done, you can save your file and then go back to your table of quantities. So on my table of quantities, the first line is wall studs. So what I want here is that I want the count of a stud, the count of lumber out of which I can um, create my studs. And in order to understand like how in order to understand that, I have to first figure out how many studs I have. So this total length of walls gives me the total number of studs for walls. Why? Because I know the studs are 16 inches on center. So if I take the total length of my wall and then divide that by 16 inches, or its feet equivalent, which is 1.333. That gives me the total count of studs. Okay. So I get the total number of I get the total length of my wall using the quantity length. So I just go to the length option. The subject is framing, and the label is interior wall main level. And so the number comes at feet and inch. And the height of these studs are 8. These are 8 feet. Like if you look at the drawings, the sections, you will see that 8 feet is the closest number to what we are looking for. And here I have to, come up with a factor so that I can convert the linear foot of walls based on 16-inch on center 8 feet long studs to the count of 12 feet lumbers that I need. Okay. Um, so the way I do this is that I have this number um, that is 1 divided by 1 point 333. So if I multiply this length that I have by that number, it gives me the count of the studs. Okay. So now then I have to multiply that by 8. That's the height of each stud to know what is the total length of my studs. Okay. And then I want to convert that number to 12 feet pieces because I order my lumber in 12 feet, standard size 2x4s. Okay. So there has to be a factor at the end that is times 0.08333. So this is the same as 1 divided by 12. Okay, that's the same thing. Okay, so if you remember, we got that one like above here on line, the line for floor beam. Wanted to convert the linear foot of beams to count of 12 feet lumbers. So the same factor. Okay. Um, so now what I need here is to add a waste factor. That's 1.1. So here at the equation, what I have is the total linear foot of the wall studs, the total linear foot of walls multiplied by this factor and then multiplied by the waste factor. And that gives me the count of 2x4 lumber that I have to order to cut my studs out of it. Okay. And okay, so that's the first line. Then the second line is extra studs at interior wall joints. So to get that number, we can take a look at our markups list, our markup sheet in Bluebeam. But you have to look at the file on which you created the extra studs. What I realized is that when you create your um, extra studs like this using these rectangles, Bluebeam is not able to count them. So in order to transfer the count, you need to do an additional step, and that is to use the count measurement tool to put a check mark on each of these. So what I did here is to add that count measurement. And I can redo it here just to show you how it works. If I have extra studs, interior main level. And so those are these purple studs. Okay. So you just need to go to tools to this count tool and then put this check mark here, change this color and its subject and label. And then once that is done, right click and add it to your tool chest to the My Tools area. And once you're done with that, it will appear here. Okay. So what I do here is simply add it wherever I have that extra studs for interior walls. Okay, so that covers that. And so once that is done, I can, just to show you, I can delete the previous legend and insert a new one. So now I have that count measurement. Um, so let's say save this file and go back to our, I go to quantity link. The source file should be the one that is for extra studs. And in order to create one, you go to the total count, and the subject should be count measurement because that's how it appears. And the label is extra studs interior main level. So that's how I labeled it. And then I press OK, and the total count appears here. So once I have the total count of extra studs and interior walls, I have to add a factor so that I can convert it to the standard lumber size. So I have 44 extra studs, and each of them are 8 feet tall. And to convert like any length of that to 12 feet standard size, I use this 0.083, and that does the conversion for me. So the equation here becomes take the total count, then multiply by 8, and then multiply by this factor to get a standard number, for the standard size lumber, and then multiply that by the waste factor and round it. So that gives me 32. Okay, now top and bottom plates. Top and bottom plates, you know that you have three of them, two on top and one at bottom on each floor. And the total length is really um, identical. The total length of walls, that's the same number that we got above. And so all we need to do here is to um, take that length and multiply by 3 and use a factor to just convert it to the standard size lumber, which in this case we assume it is 12 feet lumber. So that takes the linear foot of walls and then convert that to count the number of 12 feet lumber we need. And then I have that waste factor as well here. So I have assumed like 10% waste factor for all of the cases here. Okay, so far so good. We are making progress. And then for blocking, just like um, the previous ones, we need to do some small adjustment in Bluebeam. So what I do here is that I make sure to save your file. Then I switch to my Bluebeam for blocking. Um, okay, so this is how I created my blocks, right? Um, but now I've decided to put all of them in just one row. So this is very helpful if you want to um, know like how these are shaped, and just to make sure that you're covering everything. This distinction in color is very helpful, and also, for the purpose of showing it to others. But if you want to take that as just one line, we can make some adjustments here. So what I can do here is to um, remove this legend, and so let's see how I labeled these. These were labeled as blocking kitchen. So depending on which area they were, I assigned a label to them. So what I do here is to, right now I'm on the main plan. Um, so instead of blocking kitchen main level, I select all of them and rename that as blocking. Okay. And so let's say that's the color I want. So everything else should be pretty much identical. And so what I do here, if I create a new legend. So it's just one line that captures everything. Okay. Because that's how I decided to do the table of quantities. Okay, so I save my file here. For blocking, I need the total length. So go to check the source file. It's not listed, so I go to add it and click OK. So what I need to do here is to create a new one, and that is the total length. It's in the framing subject, and the label is blocking main level. Okay. And I have that total length here. So this count value of 2 that you see is, so if I have 2 rows of blocking in each space, so for instance, you have cabinetry, you have 1 row for the cabinetry that you um, attach to the wall, and then the other for what is left on the ground. So here you can decide whether you want to multiply your blocking to account for the number of rows that you have. And if all the spaces are identical, you can just put a number like 2 because you have 2 rows of blocking in all the spaces. Okay. So that's how I approached it here. And if you have more, you can add more. So that at least should represent the average number of um, rows that you have for blocking in each space. And so you have the count, you have the total length, and so all we need to do here is to just create our factor. So let's say if I multiply this by that, that will be my total length. And all I need is the same factor um, that is 1 divided by 12, which is the same number that I've got above. And that converts the total linear foot of walls to count of 12 feet numbers. So let's see if I've got this correctly. So I have to multiply the count by this number that I have, by the factor, by the weight factor. That is the count of 2x4 lumber that I need for this floor to create the blocking. Okay, and then the other line is bracing. So the way you can get the bracing is like that refers to the diagonals that you put to increase the resistance against lateral forces, like including wind during the construction and after that. And that bracing, you can assume it is done like every 10 feet up to every 20 feet of your linear distance of your walls. So for every 10 feet of your walls, you put 1 diagonal bracing. Okay, so let's assume that's the standard. But it can be as large as like 1 for every, or as few as 1 for every 20 feet of linear distance. So what we really need here is the total length of your walls. Again, go to create total length of framing, and then for that we'll need now we are doing the interior walls. Okay, so interior wall main level. Okay, that's the same number that we got above. And so because these are diagonal, the length will be larger than the vertical studs. So I assume these are about 10 feet. So you can just multiply that 8 by, an additional 20%, 25%. or so to get that. So here I've added 25% to account for the fact that these are diagonals. And here it's not, this number disappeared. Okay. Um, so let's see what I have here. Okay, so what I'm doing here is that I have 1 divided by 20 that determines the count of the bracing that I have. I have the bracing every 20 feet. So that's the count. And then if I multiply this number, the total length that I have, this number in E21, the total length of my walls. If I if I multiply that number by 1 divided by 20, that represents the number of diagonals that I have in my project at that level, like the main level. And if I take that count and then multiply by height of each diagonal, that is the total length of my diagonals, right? And if I have the total length of my diagonals and then multiply that by 0.08333, that converts my total length of diagonals to like how many standard 12 feet lumber I have to order to build those diagonals. Okay. So all I need to do is to simply multiply this number by this factor and by the waste factor. And that gives me the total number of diagonals. Okay. So for the rest of the practice here, you can just follow just what I described here. It gives you a good amount of direction for doing the rest of the work here. So some of these are just repetitive, and some of these you need to make some small adjustments. But so I hope this video gives you an idea of like how I am approaching this practice. And don't rely on these factors. Make sure you check them. Don't just blindly follow what is written here or multiply, based on these equations. You need to think about like um, how this worked so far and then how you can make it work moving forward. And there is no like a big problem here or something like over complex that you cannot figure out. So I think so far the process was quite intuitive, and the rest, depending on how you approach this, you can make it intuitive as well. All right, so I hope this was useful, and good luck with the rest of the work, and take care.